Now, once you got down these basic notions and procedures and mechanics of the pummeling, the next, and it's sort of in the context of all of this movement, is you need to have some goals in terms of what you're ultimately trying to do. It's not simply just a pushing and a shoving match. Ultimately, you want to be able to set up some type of an attack to bring your opponent down to the mat. So within the context of all this pummeling, this pushing, going back and forth, circling, all the correct mechanics of pummeling, we need to have some goals or some direction in terms of what we're ultimately trying to do. One of the first things we're trying to do, as you can imagine by the very nature of pummeling itself, is ultimately we'd like to get double underhooks on our opponent. So while Kolby and I, when we're practicing this at first, are kind of alternating, in actuality, Kolby is going to try to get under both. So as I'm digging, he's going to block, and he wants to get under both here. That's a position of tremendous advantage when my opponent has double underhooks on me. So to add to the pummeling technique now with all this movement, your goal is going to be not to allow your opponent to come inside while you're still maintaining inside position or underhook position on his opposite side, and you're ultimately going to try to get double underhooks or underhooks on both sides. So as we're coming back and forth here, what I'm going to try to do is block Kolby from coming in on one side, and when I can, I want to come around his body. When I can, I want to come around his body. So as you're practicing this, as you develop it and want to get it more alive or more lifelike, the goal, or one of the goals in drills, is that each man tries to get double underhooks on the other. Once you're able to get this notion down, you've done a couple of things. One, you've shown that you're able to get the underhook. And also, you've shown that you're able to maintain that underhook by preventing your opponent from re-underhooking you on the side you have an underhook on. And also, too, you've shown that you're effective as he battles for an underhook on one side, that you can defeat him and come under and get double underhooks. Okay, so that's kind of where the game is at here. It's being able to go back and forth to get double underhooks, or at least that's one of the goals. And that's an excellent thing to practice as far as your skills in terms of how good you are at this. And that'll give you some level or some sense of your progress in this type of drill or this type of movement, to get double underhooks. That's going to be the root. What do you do when you get the double underhooks? When I do come under and I lock, I'm going to drop my lock, lower my weight, pressure in with my head as I pull my arms in, and I'm going to leverage and pry my opponent down. I think that's probably one of the most simple and economical ways of bringing somebody down to the mat. And this leg that's up in front is going to be ankle to ankle and knee to knee with his leg to prevent him from stepping back and retreating. So I'm digging in here, and we're digging back and forth, and I come in here. What I want to do now is I'm going to step and come down here right about at his waist, and I want you to notice I've got like a gable grip here. I'm ankle to ankle, knee to knee, and I'm just going to come down here like this. I can bring him straight down, or as he's coming down, I can transition in with my other foot to bring him down. The whole time, I'm crushing down, and my weight is down here. So I'm digging back and forth. I grab up in here, and I step typically at the same time. I lower my grip. I'm going to come in hard, push with my head, and bring him down, and maybe transition with my other foot. My other foot also replaces my original foot that was ankle to ankle, knee to knee. It then becomes ankle to ankle, knee to knee with that same leg that I was attacking initially. You'll notice too, as I'm digging, when I come in, I try to step about the same time as I'm getting that lock if I can, or at least as I'm adjusting the lock, as opposed to once I'm in here, trying to make a big step. What I'm going to try to do is I'm digging. When I grab it, I want to come in. When I grab it, I want to come in. If I'm up high, I come low, and at that same time, I adjust my lock, I'm stepping. Another goal as we're pummeling is if we can't get double underhooks, and our opponent or partner shows weakness in terms of keeping his arm in, I can grab around the arm on one side and around the body on the other. Before we were talking about keeping our opponent's arms up and keeping our arms pressured up so it's difficult for them to collapse arm. If I sense Kolby is getting a little lazy as he's digging in, what I'm going to do is as he comes in, I'm going to grab here. I'm going to make sure his elbow gets jammed to his body. And I'm not doing it by pulling him into me. I'm doing it by coming into him. I'm not trying to pull him into me when I do that. I'm approaching him. Once I get this arm trapped, it's next to useless. And I'm getting it trapped by jamming it in with my arm, as also with the weight of my body as I approach him. From this position here, I'm knee to knee, ankle to ankle. Now, I can do a couple things from this position. One, as I'm digging through and I block, I can lower my level and crush, just like before. Here. In this position, and I can just crush down, get the same type of transition, straight to the mat. We're going to go over a lot of throws and things in a DVD or instructional where we'll finish a lot of these off. But from this position, this is a little preview. If I come up in here, I can go down straight this way to the mat and maintain control. If I can't lock, I can come down this way and maintain control. There's a lot of things I can do besides just the crush position, but in this instructional, I just want to go over the most basic and fundamental type of activities and moves to bring your opponent down. And so right now we're sticking with the crush type position. Once more, we're digging in. I feel that legs are coming in, I'm going to grab. And I use my body. When we get to the issue of body locks, again in the throwing instructional, I'm going to do it a little different. You'll notice I attack one arm and that same side leg was coming in this direction. When you're preparing for a body lock position, that's different because as we're digging in here and I step and I'm going to grab, I'm going to step not on the same side, I'm going to step in between. And I'm going to load up on the opposite side, preparing to throw. So as you're practicing, again, we're not going to get into the throw right now. I just want to get down the basic movements. So there's two ways of approaching this right now. One is when I crush down to come here, I'm attacking, say, his left arm and his left leg. Okay, his left side of his body is where I'm going. You'll notice, too, I'm looking in that direction because that's the way I'm going. Alternatively, if I was going to attack the other side, I'm going to grab in here, so we're moving. To this position, I lower my level, he's in. I approach by putting the weight on this opposite leg. In other words, opposite the arm I've got here. I'm going to load him up, and I'm going to pop him when I throw him. We'll go over the technique for that. So those are two different type of motions, but two different motions you should practice to get proficient. Another situation that you want to practice, and we'll get more into detail on this in the actual throwing instructional, but you want to be able to get into your position to do your backstep, to throw, for example, arm throws, headlocks, and your basic hip throw or hip toss. And the notion here is, as we're going back and forth, one of the times I may give Kolby a tug here to get him going towards my hip a little bit, and I want to get ready to throw. Okay, I just want to get in that position. And for now, that's all you want to be practicing. You're digging, you're digging, you're digging, you're digging, and you get in that position. Underhook on one side, overhook on the other side. Just basic hip toss position. Digging. Here. Now I want you to notice something. As I'm digging, and I want you to look at my feet, if I was digging with my right arm and leading with my left foot, I've got a much bigger step to take with my right foot to do my drop step. Not only that, if my right foot is back, my hips are kind of pointed this way, where I really want them to be pointed this way when I'm done with that back step. So one advantage of digging in with the same side arm that you're leading the foot with is it's an economical movement to your back step and those class of throws. And that's, I think, an important point. So as I'm digging, this foot's slightly forward, so it's not much foot movement or hip movement. Notice where my hip is pointed. If I'm digging in with my right arm, my hip is already pointed roughly in the way I want it to go. Whereas if my right foot is back, my hip is pointed here. I've got to make a big step. It's going to take longer, more easily detected, and probably more easily defended to get into that back step position. So we're going here. Just that much at this point. Just getting your hips in. I'm just trying to give a little hip pop there. That's all. Again, we'll go over more in terms of the actual mechanics of the throws, but these are positions you want to become familiar with. Now, if I'm digging in and I'm maintaining underhooks and overhooks on each side like I was doing, that kind of sets up the over and under throw there, so your basic hip toss. However, if Kolby ends up beating me as I'm digging in here, if he's digging in on this side, but he's not allowing me to dig in on this side, as he digs in, I can't go under this arm now, or this arm to be able to get that more classic hip throw, okay? But, as we're going back and forth here, and he digs in, if I know I can't go in to his side here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come to headlock. Basic headlock. So he's got me beat on one side. I can't get in. He's defeating me on the other side. I make it difficult, so he really has to push and commit himself. And then I'm going to come with a back step to a headlock position. Also, as we're pummeling, notice in this type of position here, and I'm kind of exaggerating, perfect. And again, remember, we don't want to be having this much space, so we're really pummeling. I want to keep my chest to him. We don't want lots of back and forth, lots of space, lots of motion. We're going to keep kind of glued to each other. But just for the purpose of demonstration here, notice as we tend to both transition from overhooks to underhooks, there does tend to be a little bit more space. Notice as we finish this movement here, we are quite tight and we're chest to chest and we're pushing. But as we dig in, there is a tendency to have a little bit more space. What I want to do is as we dig in, notice he's coming in this side. I make it difficult. What does that make him? It makes him push harder. I'm pushing in. I'm having difficulty getting on this side. And I come to an arm throw here. And again, we'll go over the mechanics of that later. But just be aware that you can come under on that throw. See, I'm digging in, I'm digging in, I'm digging in. We're both trying to transition, so instead of coming through, I come to the arm. And again, we're going to go over the throw in a different instructional, but I want at this point to get across the notion of options in terms of transitioning grips when you're pummeling, and also basic footwork for the back step, for that class of throws. A final backstep type of motion and grip that I want to get familiar with while I'm pummeling is the so-called reverse headlock position. Now, headlock position can be from here, or I can be underhook. I can have an underhook. So I can be in this position. I can be in this position. So I can be over or under okay, with a variety of grips here, okay? Now, the reverse headlock is going to be on, say, we'll take the opposite side. In other words, I'm throwing in the same direction, but instead of having the near side arm, at least in terms of where I'm trying to throw, I have this arm here. And what I'm going to do is the same type of a motion here. And I just want to be able to step, get my hips in front, and pop. And I can get that same type of motion while I'm pummeling. So I'm digging up in here. I'm having trouble getting in here, or he may be defeating me in this position here, so I'm going to come to here and just go through. Okay, I want to grab the head, of course. Key thing is a quick back step, and I'm just getting my hip through, and that's all I want to do at this point.